Hi, everybody. My name is Tony Marcolini. Welcome to the podcast. It may interest you to know. And I'm incredibly honored to have with me today award-winning producer and president of Myriad Pictures, Kirk D'Amico. Welcome, Kirk.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Well, I was very excited to get the opportunity to interview you. The podcast, I focus mostly on creativity, and I think you've been creating magnificent films for a lot of years. So who's better brain to pick about that? Let me start with that exact question. What is your creative process? Right? Because you're different than, I say this on the podcast a lot. I think film is unique in that it takes a lot of hands to create the final project, right? So you have the writer and who creates these characters, but then you have the actors and actresses who breathe life into these people, and the director who's somewhat cinematic vision takes us through the story, and the cinematographer, and then the editor who makes the right choices, the producer who brings everybody together with the ultimate vision. Before you sit and watch it in a movie theater in your home, there's been a lot of hands in that creative process. But you are, I'd like to say, you're driving the boat, right? You're driving the bus along as the producer of putting these projects together. What does your creative process look like?
Well, I think, every project is different. Every project, sort of comes to us in different stages and with different elements attached or different creative people attached. And we co-produced actually a film that I directed, which was for Freeform. So it was a television movie, I guess now 6 or 7 years ago. And it's a very different process being a director on a project than it is, let's say, being a producer. So I think that there are times when we will get involved, really at the development stage, way before production. So films like Margin Call or The Good Girl with Jennifer Aniston many years ago. Those are projects where we were really involved very early on. And then there's other projects that come to us, where maybe even some footage has been shot, or they're looking for help in post production, or they're really not, their creative team has already been established. So it really depends. Each project is kind of unique, and we approach, my company approaches every project differently.
Do you feel connected right from the minute you read the script? I mean, do you just know?
I think there's an assessment. I mean, I think we have a submissions meeting every Friday. That's usually the salespeople, sometimes our head of marketing, even our business affairs person will read those scripts. We regularly have interns that read for us, and so we're always trying to, it's really tough for me to read every script that comes in. I mean, we get hundreds of scripts every year.
Sure.
So I will try to sort of, have other people read the scripts first, and then I'll take a look at it, depending upon the recommendation. But I think that very often we're trying to look at the big picture, the overall picture of a project. So the script is always kind of the foundation, and it's the blueprint for the house that's going to get built. And so we're obviously we're looking at that. But if the project has a director that we know that's attached, or producers that we've worked with before, or significant cast attached, we may look at that project differently.
Sure. Right. So, because sometimes it's about that um, more than the merit of the work, which saddens me a little bit, but I think is true because you're not the only professional to say this. Um, that there are projects, right, that sometimes may be worthy, but it's an untested, uncharted waters, right? It has attached a director or producers who you've never heard of before. You don't know the quality of the project that's going to, come out of that, as opposed to tried and true, tested people who know what they're doing. Maybe they have a less interesting project, but something you're more going to be more interested in because of their history.
I think my track record and Myriad's track record has been, across a wide range of films. So we've done, the films like Margin Call, or more recently, we did a film called Bob Trevino Likes It, where we got involved with pre-production. The film went to South by Southwest. It's won both the Audience Award there and the Narrative Feature Jury Prize. So that was a film which is on the other side of the spectrum, which was not a big budget film, a recognizable cast, but because of it actually came to me through Mark Pellington, a director that we'd worked with before. I produced Mark's film The Last Word with Shirley MacLaine and Amanda Seyfried, and so that Mark's recommendation really I think I wanted to look at it more closely. So, and in reading the script, it's a quality piece. It's very original. That's the kind of,
Storytelling.
storytelling that's very personal to Tracy Lehman, who wrote it and directed it. That just gave us cause. I mean, in fact, there was another actor attached to it who couldn't do it for scheduling reasons, and then John Leguizamo came on board, and that was a commercial reason for us to want to commit to it.
I have to ask this question. You probably get it a lot, but what was it like to work with Shirley MacLaine?
Well, I mean, I'll just say Shirley's a hoot. I haven't kept in touch in the last year or two. I mean, I haven't really kept in touch since before the pandemic. But I'll tell you a quick story, which is that the financing was really, really tough to put together. And we'd been going through pre-production, and we had to get all the money in place in order for SAG to release the actors. And it was really right up against the wire. We were up against the first day of shooting, but we managed to pull it off. So the first day of shooting, I'm on the set, and it's in downtown LA, and Shirley comes walking in, and she walks over to Mark Pellington and a couple of other crew people there. And Mark says, "How are you?" And she says, "Well, not very good. I've got shingles." And it's because of that damn Kirk D'Amico. And I said, "Shirley, I'm right here." And she goes, "Oh, but anyway, no, she was fantastic to work with. Very, very, very professional. I think the crew kind of rallied around her because of her experience and her history. And at the sort of the last day of shooting, she gave a little speech and made us all feel really, really great, saying that essentially that our film, this independent film, that we didn't have a lot of money, but that it stacked up to any studio film that she'd ever worked on. So
Wow.
yeah.
Now that is high praise. I mean, when I think of Shirley MacLaine, of course, I think of all, her really illustrious career, her blockbuster hits. And I think I would be, a little starstruck, right, if I came face to face with her. So I think that had to be an amazing opportunity.
Yeah,
To,
Shirley was attached to the project when it came to us, but then I reached out to Amanda Seyfried, and Amanda was, she wanted to work with Shirley. She liked the script and she liked Mark Pellington, but she was really compelled to work with Shirley.
Yeah, well, who wouldn't be?
Yeah.
I mean, that's an opportunity I think most people would be hard pressed to pass up. So I was definitely struck by that, having had that opportunity. You certainly, then you hit the pinnacle of your career, right? When you're suddenly on a set with Shirley MacLaine, you think, wow, you got to be looking around saying, pinch me.
Yeah, I mean, look, it is, I mean, it's, you know, you know, I've been on a lot of sets over the years.
Yeah.
Uh, I visited New Mexico when we were shooting the Walter Hill film called Dead for a Dollar with Christoph Waltz and Willem Dafoe. And that was amazing watching Walter Hill work and such great actors. But, you know, over the years, um, you know, going back to The Good Girl with Jennifer Aniston or you know, we did one.
Another great film. I mean, that had to be to sit there and watch, that brings up something for me. To sit there and watch something being filmed, right? And then to actually see it come together in the final project, when it's finally a film. Um, what is that like for you? Like
Well,
to see,
I think that that was, I mean, it was Jennifer's first sort of independent film away from the studios. And I'll never forget, we were out by sort of like, I don't know, it was a lake out in Malibu somewhere. And it was the scene where Jake Gyllenhaal is in the water and, you know, there's heaters in the water and everything. And uh, Miguel Arteta is really trying to, you know, as an independent film, again, trying to get as much in the camera as possible. And the sun is going down. And I'll never forget, I see Jennifer Aniston running across the field in order to get to the next setup before we lose the light. I'm like, whoa, that's amazing. Here is really a bona fide movie star who just wants to help the production, just get the light, you know. And I thought that, you know, it spoke volumes about her and her willingness to you know get this film made. And ultimately, you know, it went to Sundance, which was a whole other story, but it was sold to Fox Searchlight, and it went on to be one of Searchlight's you know award campaigns that year. But you know, and then also I will say that that was a situation where, you know, I mean, it's always a collaborative effort.
yeah.
And I think what happens is when you engage with a director and a production team, you know, I mean, I had the flexibility at that point to be able to spend more money to extend the post-production process. And I think especially, well, both for Van Wilder, but especially for The Good Girl, that was a situation where, you know, I always called it like polishing the gemstone. Is that Miguel and the editor were able to uh, you know, to put the film in front of audiences over a fairly long period of time, and to find things in the edit that really worked. And we sort of, it wasn't any like, you know, aha moment, but at a certain point in time, we tested the film and we crossed over into that threshold where it was really working for audiences. So I think, you know, I think producers sometimes have the ability to impact, you know, what the film ends up being, for better or for worse. I mean, I think that I've been involved in films too where we just had to insist that the edit come in on time because we didn't have any money either. So it runs the gamut.
Do you have a favorite scene across your career? And maybe you were on the set for and you watched it happen and it was just like it really like it stands out in your mind.
Um, well, I would say less as a producer and more as a director, because the film that I directed, um, I had one scene where I sort of pretended I was David O. Russell with Bailey Madison, and she goes into the therapist's office, and I was literally like, you know, crouched down behind the sofa, like you know, 2 feet away from her, but out of the shot. And I just felt like I felt like that I really needed to be very close to the actors in order to make the scene work. and it did work. And there's something really magical when I mean, the actors are so good. Um, but you're there and you're helping them to get to a certain point in the scene or a certain point in their characters. So that was really that was very special.
Well, I think it's pretty hard to be a director. I mean, to the extent that you are pulling out of someone the best they can be, uh, in a particular scene, that's not an easy task.
No, and I mean, part of it is too, I mean, I had met Bailey and I had seen her work, but it's only when you're sort of on the set that you really see sort of the range of an actor, I think. Um, and I was just so impressed with her performance. But we also had a really great performance uh, from French Stewart, and just a great cast, really.
Do you have a project you're most proud of?
I get asked that. I would have to say, I mean, last year it was really fun seeing Margin Call go back onto Netflix, and a lot of people rediscovered that film. And so I'm really proud of that film, and I'm really glad I engaged with JC Chander, in pre-production. We talked about the script a lot. And again, every film is collaborative. That had a very strong group of producers on it. Um, I think we helped in terms of the financing, and then we also were really active in post. But I'm really proud of that film because it was a film that, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it tried to make sense out of the financial crisis in sort of 2009. And just we had an extraordinary group of actors that came together. Some of them only worked for 3 or 4 days, but Jeremy Irons and Paul Bettany and Simon Baker. It was just a incredible group. Zach Quinto, who was on very early, both as an actor and as a producer, was also just these are all just great people to work with.
Now, while you're not necessarily, involved with the writing of these projects that you're getting, um, are there times where you add something? You're in the shower, you're thinking about it, and you're like, hey, you know what? That scene, could have been done a little bit differently. Do you feel like you have your creative touches that you add?
Well, I think what happens is over the years, especially when you work with a first time director, you do see, let's just call it, uh, things that first time directors do that they have to learn, right? That they'll take to the next film. And so we try sometimes or I try to, to give them advice. So I think sometimes it's appreciated, sometimes it's not. But things like don't be afraid of close-ups. I mean, that's a consistent first-time director thing where they don't want it to look like television. So oftentimes, each scene, I think, has its own sort of rhythm and dynamic. But if there's a very incredibly dramatic or personal moment, you want to be tight on the shot, right? You want to get in there and to see the emotions, for the audience to be able to see the small motions of an actor's face. And I think that the go-to place for most first-time directors are the medium, or even sometimes the wider shots, because they think they need that composition to tell the story. But each scene has its own sort of I guess requirements, really, to get the most out of the scene.
That's interesting. Did you always love film? I mean, it comes
No,
through
I
when
mean,
you're speaking.
I trained I mean, I was always interested in film. I was thinking about this the other day. I went to Holy Cross in Massachusetts, and there was a film club there, which I wasn't part of the club, but they had these crazy selections of films like Valley of the Dolls and, just like what I would call um, college level kind of genre
Eclectic.
films. What's that?
You're very eclectic.
Very eclectic. And so I remember going to see almost every one of those films. So I was keen to do that. And then I went to law school in DC, and one of my best friends was just a total film nerd. And so, we both graduated from law school, and he said to me one day, he said, "I think we should get into film distribution." And I was like, "Great, what is that?" So we started getting these films, which are mostly music related, that didn't have national distribution, and so we could go and grab them and then rent or four wall the cinemas in the DC area, and sort of like, I don't know, a second or third time out, we were able to get Penelope Spheris's sort of pivotal documentary on the LA punk scene called Decline in Western Civilization. And the second day of the run, we got Penelope's face on the cover of the arts and leisure section of the Washington Post, and then we sold out the run. I think it was kind of like going to the casino. The worst thing is when you're that young and you have that kind of sort of relative success. I mean, and you're kind of hooked. You keep wanting that kind of overnight success again.
Well, your passion towards film comes through. So I assume that there was, from when you were young, that was sort of there. It just took a little time to percolate, it sounds like.
It did. And then I got a job in New York City. I was working for a joint venture between RKO, which was at that point they had the library, but they also had these big broadcast stations like WOR and KHJ. And they put together a joint venture with the Nederlander organization to, it was the advent of HBO and Showtime and cable. And we were doing television adaptations of stage productions. So I was doing all the business affairs, and so we did, I don't know, more than 30 television adaptations of stage productions in about 3 years, and it was just a great education for me.
What's on the agenda now for Myriad? What projects are coming down the pipeline?
We have a film that stars Carrie Ann Moss, that was just shot this last year up in Canada, with a kind of a cult genre director named Lowell Dean, who created these movies called Wolf Cop. But it's a what I would call an elevated genre film, post-apocalyptic world, and Carrie Ann Moss is in it with Frank Grillo and Douglas Smith, and it's a love story within a zombie film, I would say, and it breaks some conventions, so that's fun. We'll show that in the market in Cannes here in a couple weeks, and then we've got Bob Trevino coming up, which is just so happy with how that film turned out. We're going to.
You're getting a lot of praise, high praise on that. I've been
Yeah,
reading.
I mean, a great, producers were awesome, cast was awesome, and it's again a very personal story from Tracy Lehman, and so we're really happy about that. We are going to we're going to be pre-selling a film that stars Gemma Arterton, British director named David Blair, and the film, it looks like it's now going to shoot in Ireland, but it's called
Mhm.
Storm Witch, and it's based on real events that actually happened basically in northern England, in the 1700s, where it was before modern science, before modern medicine, and you know um, a woman who understands the power of healing power of plants, who understands, sort of nature and weather patterns and things like that, that today could be explained, but then couldn't be explained. She's accused of witchcraft,
Mhm.
and is kind of persecuted by the local authorities and the townspeople. And so it's a very well written script that's told from her perspective. So
Wow.
we'll go to Cannes and try to pre-sell that movie, in order to help raise the financing for it.
Do you have any advice for young writers? Because your profession can be daunting for someone to try to break into.
Well, we're always looking for originality. We're always looking for something, there's just these basic categories. So, horror, comedy, romantic stories, romantic comedies. And they are somewhat formulaic, and it's really the within these kind of basic categories, you're always looking for originality. You're always looking for a fresh take on these, kinds of traditional genres.
Sure,
Um,
like Romeo and Juliet, right? Keeps getting retold
Keeps getting
from
retold
Shakespeare.
in different settings,
Yeah,
different time periods. West Side Story is Romeo and Juliet. I mean, it's
exactly.
just that's what it is. But I think also that, um, there's I mean, I'll use Tracy's script as an example. I mean, it's a fairly simple story about a relationship between a daughter and her father, but it's told in such a unique way, that we kind of haven't seen before. The narcissism of her father and how that impacts on her personality growing up, and it's fodder for storytelling and good acting. So something like that is really fascinating. And I think also, you know, um, storytelling like in Margin Call, for example, that try to make sense out of big issues. I mean, we've been eyeing a project, about the Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election. And although everybody's been talking about that, no one's actually put it on screen so that we can actually get a chance to understand better what happened in that election, from the sort of across the board acknowledgement that the Russians really did interfere with the election. So if we can get that story up on the screen, I think it'll be really interesting and really something that people will talk about.
So from what I'm hearing, you're drawn to projects that are different. They have some different component. Because it sometimes doesn't feel that way. I have to admit, you watch a movie, you watch a TV show, and they somewhat do feel to me like they're regurgitating all the same themes. It's very hard to find something new. Sometimes it can be that way with books too. Less with books, but where it's kind of the same story retold. It seems very formula oriented to me. So I do agree that I like different too. I like to see something that's unique, that's not in the norm. But why is it so hard to find? Like, why are so many films, and TV shows sort of copies? And I mean, you say we look for, our litmus test is this originality, but I think in practice that's hard to find.
Yeah, I think talent, that stands out, is unique. I mean, it's not readily accessible. And I don't know whether that's kind of sometimes a kind of flattening out of. I mean, I see so many crime shows on television these days, and there's a kind of a similarity between a lot of them, and
Right.
it's rare. It's rare that there's something that's highly original with the with either the plot or the characters. And so, I think it's not easy to stand out in a crowd.
I think it's one of the things that attracted me to your company, all right, because you are going after unique. And it's not easy to sell unique. I mean, that's what draws someone to you, but overall, everyone says they're looking for unique, but not a lot of people are buying unique.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that's true, and I think dramas have gotten really tough for us to sell internationally. And so we will from time to time, look at these more action driven films or films that sci-fi kind of thrillers. I was really happy. We worked on a film that was originally called Hello Stranger, but then went out last year, called Simulant, and Canadian filmmaker April Mullen. But that was a I thought a really, a little bit ahead of its time about AI. Um, AI sort of android-like human-like
Right.
characters, and do they have, what is being human, what's consciousness, I think we were probably about a year ahead of our time when the film came out. But again, April did a great job with the material, and we had a great cast: Sam Worthington and Simu and Jordana Brewster and Robbie Amell. I mean, and really really proud of that film. And that's a situation for us anyway, which both had originality to it, I thought, and it also it was commercially received internationally. So we were happy with that, and we would look for films like that again, where we could balance, you know, the kind of its ability to survive in the marketplace with original elements.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that's good advice, though, overall to anybody trying or still who's wants to get into the field. Originality, something that catches someone's attention as being unique, uh, I guess is always a good thing. And if you can combine that with some level of commercialization, I guess you really have something.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen really lovely performances of, dramas of two people in a room, and as much as I might appreciate the acting and the story, that's really tough for us to sell in the marketplace.
Yeah, the market's not there for it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you sound excited about your upcoming projects. I certainly hope that you'll come back and talk to me again as new films are
I'd
being
love that.
released.
No, it's an interesting conversation. It's rare that people ask me about the creative process. They mostly want to know, what actor sells internationally, or, you know, can their project travel? And so it's I think it is a blend always of trying to sort of balance out your business interests with your creative interests.
I think being creative is so incredibly important. I'm a cancer survivor, and prior to that, I was just a workaholic attorney, right? I never stopped. I was always bouncing from courthouse to courthouse. And cancer was truly a divine tap on the shoulder to me, to reset my life and to really go back to, I don't want to say my roots, but sort of go back to, the me before who really enjoyed creating things. And that's what got me thinking to start the podcast, because I think creativity exists in all of us, albeit in different forms. Right. Certainly takes creativity to do many different jobs, not just writing a book or creating a film. But I think it's most prevalent in this field, in the entertainment business. So I sort of like to poke my nose around and say, what does that process look like for you? And I think creativity really, it makes the world go round, right? We wouldn't have so many different even inventions if somebody didn't start with an idea. I like to encourage that, and I think it's worth a conversation. I think it's worth a discussion.
Absolutely. I'm sure it's hard to look at your experience with cancer as a blessing, but maybe it was if it allowed you to reset in that way.
It did, absolutely. It allowed me to reset many things in my life, how I live, how I eat, the importance of exercise and eating a diet that's geared towards anti-cancer, foods and healthy foods. In all ways, I think to stress management, we don't think about stress a lot and the impact it has on our body, but it's enormous.
Well,
And,
maybe the next time we can have a conversation because I actually think that that being connected to the creative to your side of your brain or to your creative self is part of good health. It's part of longevity. So
I concur.
yeah,
I concur. And for me, it helped, right? It helped. It allowed me to completely reset so many things in my life that I see differently than I did before. And I don't think if you had given me the advice before, I would have received it. Right? Until you're in that situation, that's when you first go, oh, okay, this is real. This is real now. And this is anything left I want to do. I need to get to it. I need to think more about how I'm living, and it made me open to it. So I enjoy when professionals like yourself come on and you chat with me about how what you're creating, and you're putting these brain projects out into the world for people to enjoy. And you truly never know who you're touching with them. Because I have to say, when I was going through, I say my cancer journey, there were days that I got through, let's say, chemotherapy that day, thinking about what I was going to watch that night, right? Trying to focus on some place I could lose myself, whether that be a book, or a TV show or a movie, someplace where it allowed me a few moments out of what I was going through, and a window into somebody else's world. That form of entertainment, although undervalued, is completely valuable to people. You don't know, sometimes the life raft, you are throwing a person who will enjoy your creation and will give them some pleasure or something to look forward to. So
absolutely.
I do like to take some time to give credit there and say, everyone thinks of the entertainment business as just this, fun ride with a lot of money. And that's an invaluable service that's also being performed, to meet people where they are in their lives, who they may very much need that moment with your film or your book.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I invite you to come back. Please come back and keep talking to me as you're creating new films.
Well, thank you so much. It's really a pleasure.
Thank you. And thank you for joining me today.
Talk to you soon.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.